Apply the philosophy. Hello, this is Dr. Bin Song at Washington College. After introducing the 6 steps of LBT in last unit, we are now going to zoom in the final step and see how we can apply the philosophy suggested in step 5. It is very important to write conclusions down during the practice of philosophical counseling. When you write them down, you materialize the ideas into ink, paper, and digits. Then you can refer to them whenever your thought deviates from these very important conclusions of your soul-searching process. There is a practice called affirmation or auto-suggestion in the realm of spiritual self-care. It is to have us to regularly affirm or suggest important words such as I am worthy and I have a talent to perfect myself either verbally or mentally in one's private time, such as during work breaks, meditation, before sleep or after getting up. The goal of this practice is to let these important beliefs become ingrained into our subconsciousness, become a part of us, and are therefore able to guide our daily life in a more effective way. Normally, the words used by people who practice affirmation or auto-suggestion have not gone through the rigorous process of scrutiny, just as the previous steps of LBT conducted. They may come from people's common sense, or maybe just from beliefs contrary to how unhappy people are normally emoting or behaving. This would make us doubt whether these beliefs to be affirmed are sound and reasonable. However, one great advantage of philosophy-based therapy is to provide a rigorous method to affirm beliefs that are indeed rational and fit for the unique situation of each individual. Therefore, in order to practice affirmation or auto-suggestion in the context of philosophical counseling, we need to write those key conclusions down and be ready to repeat them regularly in our mind through private moments of our life. To continue the example we used before, I will write down the most important conclusions of step 5 in light of Immanuel Kant's philosophy of human dignity as such. Quote, "Just because my dad says I'm stupid does not mean that I really am stupid. My worth and dignity does not depend upon what he or anyone else thinks. It is unconditional, and I really don't need their approval anyway, even though I might prefer it." Quote, with these keywords, or let me say, with this mantra in hand, and if the counselee can repeat it for multiple times in his private moments of life, he will have a very good foundation to move forward to pursue what he remains to do in this final step of LBT. That's to implement a plan or action to eventually transform his behaviors. And we can do it in the following 2 steps. Firstly, we need to clarify how he behaved previously when he suffered from his self-defeating emotions. In other words, we will use a method similar to step 1 of LBT to identify his behavioral reasoning. The conversation between the philosophical counselor and the counselee can be conducted as follows. Counselor, let's now work on what you can do to begin to make constructive changes in your life. What are some of the things you do? How do you act when you start to think you are worthless? Suppose you have just been told by your dad that you are stupid, and you start to tell yourself that he must be right, and that you are really worthless. What things do you do in response? Counselee, sometimes he does it when I stop by for dinner, and he does it at the dinner table. Usually it's just my mom and sister, but he even does it when there are others there, relatives, family, friends, and even neighbors. Okay, what do you do when he does it, when there is a bunch of people present? I just smile, even though I'm dying on the inside. I try not to call attention to myself. And what would happen if you called attention to yourself, say by speaking up? It made me look even more worthless because then I would look disrespectful. Disrespectful? Yes, he's still my dad and all. Yes, and he'll still be your dad even if you spoke up. True, but I would look bad. Does this have anything to do with your demand for approval? Yes, I suppose so. I don't want these people to think poorly of me. And if they did, then you would be worthless? Should we add them to the list of the people from whom you feel you need approval? Yes, I think so. I know most of them since I'm a little kid. So how do you act on other occasions when someone is disapproving of you for whom you demand approval? Pretty much the same way. I try to blend in as much as I can. I don't say anything and just let it go. Here, the counselor can help the counselee to realize the process of his behavioral reasonings runs like this. Behavioral rule. If I am worthless, then I should just be to blend in and not be noticed. Justification. I am worthless. Behavioral prescription. So I should try to blend in and not be noticed. To understand the structure of this behavioral reasoning, let's recall the structure of emotional reasoning we once discussed. The formula for that structure is E equals O plus R, namely, an emotion is triggered by the rating of an intentional object. We can see that the rating part of this emotional reasoning functions as a justification for a certain behavioral prescription in this new structure of behavioral reasoning, which we can write as B equals J plus P. The continuity between these two formulas are highly understandable, because it is the rating of certain events, such as my father is right and therefore I am worthless, that stimulates our emotional reaction, such as depression. And further, it is this emotion that stimulates a certain behavioral pattern, such as blend in and not to be noticed. As we say, since the rating of his father's words is highly irrational, for the counselee, his behavior deriving from it is not rational either. This is because the way he tries to blend in and not be noticed clearly does not help to support his self-respect and to rectify his father's inappropriate words. In other words, he clearly needs a plan of action to implement so as to change his behavior. In light of the mantra we just get above, we can do it in this way. Now that we have identified what you are doing in response to those who disapprove of you, let's see if we can change this behavior to something more rational. Counselee, okay, what would that be? This would be up to you, but it would be based on the wisdom of the philosopher we talked about. Remember what Kant advised? Yes, I do. He said to respect yourself, treat yourself like you are worthy of respect, and not to treat yourself as though you were an object. That's right. When you try to blend in, as you say, when your dad or others put you down, are you treating yourself like you are worthy of respect? No, I suppose not. And why not? Because I'm letting others say these things and I just smile. They are kind of manipulating me, like I'm some kind of puppet. They put me down and I just sit there and smile, as though they have a point and I'm just what they say I am, stupid. So how do you propose to change your behavior to be more respectful of yourself? I could not smile. Maybe I could say something like I don't appreciate being talked down to like that. Yes, you could indeed assert yourself in that way. So let's role play it. I'll be your dad and imagine we are sitting at the dinner table with a bunch of guests and I say, "You are so stupid, son." Dad, I don't appreciate being put down like that. How would you like it if someone called you stupid? So how are you feeling now that you put your dad on notice not to talk to you like that? I'm feeling very uncomfortable because everyone is looking at me and my dad is reading paste at me. Do you want their approval? Yes, I just lost it, at least my dad's. But do you remember that in our previous discussion, in light of Kant's philosophy, since your worth does not depend upon the approval of others, you do not need them, even if you prefer to have them. Yes, it might be preferable to get the approval of my dad and the others, but I shouldn't demand it because it's just a preference. Yes, that's right, and who knows, maybe your dad and the others may actually approve of you more after you speak up. But if they don't, then so be it. It's not necessary that you have their approval. I really see where this is going. Well then, that sounds like a plan, and this fits very well with what Kant advised, namely, not to treat yourself like a mere thing. By asserting yourself, you will be making a statement that you are not to be treated like some object, to be manipulated and used. You will be asserting your dignity and self-determination, treating yourself, as Kant would say, as an end in itself, as a person worthy of respect. And you can do this without demanding the approval of anyone. Yes, I'm waiting to give this a try. Here, using the mantra we just get after step 5, the counselor prescribes the following more rational plan of action for the counselee to implement, and the new process of reasoning can be written as such. If your dad or others put you down, then you should not demand approval from them, and instead you should treat yourself as an end in itself through asserting yourself by speaking up. Your dad or others are putting you down, so you should not demand approval from them, and instead should treat yourself as an end in itself through asserting yourself by speaking up. In combination with the mantra we get, the full prescription of this philosophical counseling can be written down in this way. Quote, just because my dad says I'm stupid does not mean that I really am stupid. My worth and dignity does not depend upon what he or anyone else thinks. It is unconditional, and I really don't need their approval anyway, even though I might prefer it. Therefore, if my dad or others put me down again in the future, I will treat myself as an end in itself by speaking up and asserting myself. Quote, this is the plan of action that the counselee needs to implement to let himself fully get out of the situation that he does not want to be in. Clearly, it requires a tremendous amount of willpower for the counselee to change his old habit and form a new one. The process of transformation must be accompanied by certain kinds of discomfort, inconvenience, or even struggle, and these things are precisely what one's willpower needs to overcome. Is there anything else that a philosophical counselor can help to nurture this willpower? Yes, the philosophical counselor can teach the counselee how to do regular meditation. The meditation skill is so needed for self-care and therapy because of two central aspects of it. First, while lowering the frequency of brain wave and helping ourselves get into the deeper level of human consciousness, we can start to repeat the mantra that we once generalized in step 5, and thus implant the new ideas into our mind. Second, in the same state of deep meditation, we can start to visualize the scenario that needs to happen when we will change our behavior so as to implement the prescribed plan of action. For instance, if I was the counselee, I will visualize in my mind regularly how I can assert my own worth if my dad puts me down again. I can do this regularly in order that the action of asserting myself becomes a hardwired new pattern of behavior. After I consistently practice this visualization, if my dad really puts me down again in the future, I will be very likely to react exactly in the way that I once visualized it. As for how to meditate to enter this deeper state of human consciousness, different traditions provide different methods, and I advocate that you can choose any of them and practice it in a way fit for your purpose. In the course of Ru and Confucianism, I teach a whole set of meditative skills inspired by the Confucian tradition, including breathing, quiet sitting, standing, sleeping, walking, and martial arts, etc. If you have interest in it, you can sign up with that course in the future. Besides meditation, the role play in a conversation conducted similarly to the one between the philosophical counselor and the counselee described above can also be very helpful. On top of this, hypnotherapy, shaming attack exercise, a regular discussion of the topic in a supportive group, and other methods of psychotherapies can also help the client to nurture the needed willpower. However, eventually, it is still the counselee themselves who takes the responsibility to implement the prescribed plan of action and actually do it, rather than just thinking about it. Therefore, the success of philosophical counseling will decisively rest upon whether the counselee will use their willpower to consistently implement the plan of action in light of the suggested philosophy. Because of this, no philosophical counselor can guarantee the success of their counseling practice, but what they can guarantee is to prescribe the right philosophy, the right plan of action, and the needed guidance for the implementation of the plan. As for the final result, it needs the collaboration of the counselor and the counselee to eventually get there. You may think this is a disadvantage of philosophical counseling since it cannot guarantee the final successful result. However, think about the benefit that a counselee can get if they really want to change themselves and put the plan into action. In this case, no one in the world can either misguide or manipulate them anymore, since their willpower will be so strong and their mind will be so clear that they can have the real autonomy to live the life they really want. Considering this transformative benefit human beings can get from actually practicing a philosophy, I would not think the aforementioned uncertain result as a disadvantage. I would say the real advantage of philosophical counseling lies rightly here.